Time to go.
Okay. The Bucyrus City Joint Regular Committee meeting was called to order by Monica at 6:00 p.m. Members present: Mark McKeever, Kevin Myers, Dan Wireball, Bruce Truca, myself, Doug Fote, and Andrew Schott. Do we have any public participation? None? Order of committee business. First up is finance at 6:00 p.m. Joyce?
Okay. We have several appropriations. I have two in the general fund. In program one, security of persons and property, under the police department. The first one is for $1,297.25 to materials and supplies. And this includes a donations to Safety Town in the amount of $297.25, and a grant from Walmart to Police Explorers of $1,000. Then we also need an appropriation in capital outlay for the police K-9 unit in the amount of $500 for a donation members received. Then in Fund 820, the derelict building liability, under fire department, other uses, we need an appropriation of $30,520. This is for an insurance deposit that was received for 302, 304 West Mansfield Street. That's all I have.
Okay. Questions?
So no questions, I'll make a motion that we approve the various appropriations. Second.
First by Andy, second by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. I will recess the finance at 6:02 p.m.
Okay, I'll work on it.
At 6:05 p.m. 6:02. Okay, we'll go ahead and get service committee started. And I'm just gonna call it at 6:03 p.m. First item on the agenda is raw water line.
Well, I guess I'll start it. As I said in the last meeting, as we talked about the 24-inch raw and our concern about being able to work on it 5 years from now or 2 years. We kind of went over all that. I'm not going to dwell on the past, but Lynn is here tonight. I'm sure you all know Lynn McKeever, and John Ernsberger came. He's got a little bit of video if you'd like to see. We had about 300 foot of line. We did get to video, but that was about as far as we got. So if you wanted to see that real quick, you can put it up on the TV. And then I'll let Lynn kind of explain the engineering part and anything other questions you might want to ask about the conversion or putting it in. So you guys, do you want to see the little bit of video?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure you do.
Just the back one. There you go.
You need to go out.
Yeah, we can all go there.
Full of coconuts.
Thought that was all Miller Park, all that water.
It's not that blue.
No.
We don't get palm trees out there.
This video starts,
You gotta bring it up on the big
yeah,
screen.
this one will start at, right behind the Lime Lagoons. This it's going east, this particular video.
So this is inside the
This-
24-inch
This is
line?
inside the 24-inch raw water line.
And John, how many feet did you get that way?
I think we went 320, about 328 feet before we ended up running into a belly. It was full of water and the camera couldn't go any further.
What typically causes that when you see that belly of water?
One of two things from that I would say. One would either be improper installation, or over the years, the pipe has settled and it just leaves a belly in the pipe. And Lane could probably add something if he had.
Water lines you lay with the ground too, so they can go up and down. Unlike sewer pipes where you lay them at a straight grade.
But this was this would have been gravity fed when they put it in, wouldn't it?
Yes and no. A gravity sewer line is one that's laid to a grade to me. You can have a high point and a low point, and that gravity will push it through, but the water line can go like that in between.
Yeah.
It needs music.
Should have charged the tickets for this show.
Lawrence well.
Yeah.
As this goes, you'll see some spots along the sides. You really can't tell what it is, so you don't know if it's a little bit of concrete that is broke off. John, how did the seams look, or the junction joints, or?
The joints looked they looked okay to me.
Now, this pipe is not being used for anything right now, correct?
Correct. This is one joint, and basically just, right here's the joint where they connect together.
One concern of a past superintendent was if there were any cracks in the concrete, that it potentially could have a place for bacteria or anything to start growing. That was one of his concerns.
Is that the zebra mussels, John?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm fine.
They got in that line?
Yeah, you could see as he was looking around that joint, they were right under the water as it came around.
Raw water.
That's one thing we did see a lot of was zebra mussels in the pipe.
There. Stop.
Right here's all of your zebra mussels. There's a whole lot more as you continue on.
But one of the things that was gonna happen with this line was this line was gonna get scrubbed out before we ever if we ever decided to
Right.
send already processed water through it.
Yep.
Right here you can see zebra mussels.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So much so it's making the camera bounce as it drives over.
my concerns are these little, I can turn the camera. One of my concerns is these large white dots. You can see them. He'll zoom in on several of them, but I'm not really sure what they are. There are a couple of them that he zooms in on that it looks like there might be cracks in it. So I don't know if the cement lining is actually cracking or pulling away from the pipe itself. I've never looked inside a ductile iron pipe before. This is my first time, so I don't know what those circles are.
But this entire line has been in there since 1970.
1972.
1972 is when it was installed. It would come in from Riley, right?
Lynn, what's the average depth of the pipe along the route?
There should be a minimum of about 4 foot of cover. I've not seen the profiles of the raw water line.
We dug two locations. We dug this one, and it had about 3 foot of cover on it. The other spot behind Carpenter's Bottom, we uncovered it, and there was probably 8 to 9 foot of cover on it. You'll notice there is water here, and then as this continues on to the 300 some feet, it does get dry, and then it fills back up with water where the belly is.
Are tree roots a concern for that type of a pipe? Or is it thick enough that they're gonna grow around it?
I didn't see any in this pipe, in these videos, but I don't think we were far enough into the foliage to see any. But I've always been told that, or I was told one time that one nice thing about plastic sewer pipe was that you couldn't get tree roots in it because of the rubber joint. Well, I've seen it, it happens. So that is another one of my concerns, is possible tree roots in the pipe.
So this is east of the Lime Lagoons?
This is going east from the Lime Lagoons.
And you know where the Lime Lagoons are, everybody, yeah, okay. East of the railroad tracks.
As the line gets deeper though, as well as what the mayor and I both know now, is 8 to 9 feet. The roots aren't really gonna affect the pipe so much as we've learned, right, Mayor?
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, we've learned that really the roots don't go, tree roots usually don't go that deep. They only go about 3 feet deep.
Yeah.
You know, kind of a misnomer when people say roots go really deep. They don't really go deep.
Yeah.
They stay within like the top 3 feet of the soil.
Well, what you see, John, of the condition of what they've seen so far is just about what it is, the 300 feet you did.
Yeah, pretty much the whole way.
Okay?
Is there any anything on there that's
Yeah,
worse?
I'm
or-
fine.
Yeah.
Someone's got some
I
questions.
don't think you going or going west. This is one of the butterfly valves. I'm gonna fast forward it because they had, the tires were too big, they couldn't get under the valve. So they had to take it back out, put new wheels on it.
So what's the butterfly valve?
They put the butterfly valves in when they, right here is where, this right here is where they connected to the old 18-roll water line. So at one point, there was a period of time when you could transition between the 18 or the 24. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 locations where there's a transition or where they're connected together. And this is one of them.
What the butterfly valve is, it's like a dish. Instead of a gate valve, which you just go straight up and down, the butterfly valve turns sideways, and it takes a whole lot less turns. There's like 3 turns per inch, so you got 24 times 3, 72 turns to get those things open, and it would be a lot less with the butterfly valves. A lot of times on stuff over 12 inches, we'll use butterfly valves.
And that was something that we had discussed when we were originally looking at this. We knew that there was going to need to be special attention to those valves, right?
Yeah, there were 6 or 7 gonna be replaced.
Right, okay.
Someone got any questions?
Pretty rocks, yeah.
It's fast forward,
All right.
trying to get it.
So when you said that this end is going west, where is this originating from?
It originates from the same place.
Oh, okay.
The Lime Lagoons.
Oh, okay, so this is going under the railroad then?
Yes. It doesn't quite get that far because ran into some rocks. This is where they had to pull the camera out, put the smaller tires on.
Okay. So is there any more that we're gonna learn if we continue?
That's about it?
Okay.
Here's the rocks. They couldn't go any further because the smaller tires wouldn't go over the rocks. How the rocks got in the pipe is beyond me.
This is somewhere between the Lime Lagoons and,
The
the
railroad
old.
track. This would be between the Lime Lagoons and the railroad tracks. This is about 30 feet past the place where we dug in at the lagoons.
Could those have been there from the beginning? I mean,
Could have been. They could have been in the pipe when it was first installed.
right. Because how else would have giant rock gotten in there? That's what I'm wondering. Was it
From the very beginning.
Yeah.
Could've been a little pebble back in 1970.
Yeah.
For all those years.
The guy that installed it, it's like, who's going to inspect our work?
It's true. Someday we don't have
How
to.
big are your pumps?
Okay, thank you, John.
How big a diameter is your pumps at the pump station?
I'm thinking they're probably 12 to 16.
You could pass them,
That's what I was thinking.
they're pretty good, maybe not as big as all that, but And if they ever made repairs in the last 50 years, 40-some years, someone could have got it on the, even if it was on the old cast iron, they got channeled and routed through when they were bypassing sections. I don't know.
Okay.
They're there, they need to come out.
So Lynn, you kind of wanna go over, what we talked about in the last meeting. We talked about a 12-inch. We talked about a 16 if we were to put a new one in, or to use the old one, the raw one. Just any information you want to share, and then these guys can bombard you with questions.
Throw it at me. We had a while back set up some models when I was looking at the countywide water situation and distribution, and we have all of your water lines in a model and showing lines going out into the country to service various areas. And so what we did at that time is we had a line going up Plymouth from the railroad tracks north to Beech Grove where your new plant is. And we had a 12-inch line in there that would loop to the 12-inch line you put under the railroad tracks, and which would tie into the existing 12-inch line that goes up into Crossroads, loops around and comes back down Sandusky, Lawn to your water tower, Maple, back down to your old water plant location. So we did a scenario. We had the top 20 water users in the city has, and we put those in the model at their appropriate locations. And then we took the rest of the flow that you average per day, which is 1.2, 1.3 million gallons total, into the system at various points, proportionally divided across based on the houses and number of counts that we pulled off areas. So we could try to simulate the best possible scenarios for going forward with the best accuracy that we felt we could. Both water towers were in there. We also took your new water plant and the pumps that are in there, the high service pumps that pump the water through to town. And we have those in there, the pump curves to simulate as the more restriction you would have on trying more push through a line, you get more friction through the line as you're pumping more gallons, which would create more head, which then slows down the flow rate. So I'll just leave it at that. But so that we have that model. Now, what we did is during the course of the day, you have a peak in the morning and a peak in the evening in your water. You have lulls at night while we're all sleeping, unless we work the night shift or something. So we have that, and at the worst possible time, you would probably have about a 60% increase over your average daily flow. So the peak flow would come in, it would drop down, go back up, and it averages 1.0 during the course of the day. But the high would be 1.6. So we took your 1.2 million gallon or 3 million gallon, what that number, and put that 60% multiplier into the demand for the whole town. I then simulated a fire at, one that I remembered was where Ace Hardware is today. Okay, and we put a 2,000 gallon a minute fire flow there. So you have your aerial going, you have your pumper going, you can possibly come close to having a second aerial or who's ever helping, in town. But anyway, I did 2,000 gallon a minute. And we had no problems with that 12-inch in and the 18 open also, doing that type of flow. And we put that 2,000 gallon a minute in for 4 hours before they got it under control. I have since talked with representatives of the fire department, and they were saying, an hour, hour and a half, maybe a 2 hour and a really bad one, they would hope to have it under control today. So I was conservative with the 4 hours. And the 4 hours at 2,000 gallon a minute, if I did all my math right, it's 480,000 gallons that got dumped on that fire. while you had a peak flow going on in town of 60%. So then, as I said, that worked fine. We didn't run out of water. We had water in the towers. You got 1 million gallons in the air, so you only put 480 on the fire, so you'd still have 500,000 still up in the air. Plus you pump to town at the rate of 1,800 gallons a minute or something like that. So then I said, okay, now we're going to do that same scenario, and we're going to shut the new 18-inch off feeding town. We shut it off. And it still met all the requirements. We didn't run out of water. We maintained pressure in town because you still got 1 million in the air. The lowest pressure point would be at Whetstone and Harper Road. Due to ground elevations, we got down to 31 pounds of pressure out there. Average normal working pressure, the EPA wants a minimum of 35. A minimum during a fire flow event can go down to 20. We don't really like getting that low, and we didn't. We were at 31.5 based on the calculation modeling. I did take both the 18-inch out and the Fairgrounds water tower out of service, and we ran out of water. I did do one where I failed the test, but when we had the Fairgrounds water tower in service, the 18-inch off, we took the north water tower out and turned the pumps on. It actually maintained adequate pressures through town and flows, because you're actually building up extra pressure at the north end coming in the town. So by shutting the north water tower off, it wasn't trying to fill the water tower, and it was pushing more towards the fire at the south end. And I'm sure if I would have put a big fire at the north end, we would have had a similar type situation. And the difference between an 18-inch coming to town on Plymouth or a 12-inch, the 18-inch, we could push about 400 gallon a minute more into town if you had that. Another community I've got looped with 12, and it's working fine. I know there's scenarios that we can generate that it wouldn't meet, but I thought I had a reasonable scenario with the 2,000 gallon a minute fire flow, and it wouldn't be a problem. If you had a normal house fire, they're not even going to see it. Basically, your capabilities for a house fire are very adequate, and I was trying to think of something, the silver dollar type fire that we had, or was that the Clover Farm back then? They're no good. But like I said, we ran all sorts of various scenarios, and people would bring up new ideas, and the guys at the water plant brought up the idea of shutting off the north water tower this morning to see if we could push more, and it did work. I hadn't thought of doing that because I never wanted to shut one down, but it makes sense that if it was down partway and you've got more pressure, it's trying to fill, so it's taking water to that tower to top it off while you're trying to push water down to the main issue was the fire. So that's where I'm at. I'm comfortable with the modeling. We've run a lot of scenarios. I think we about wore it out as far as we were concerned. So
I just got one quick question,
Yeah.
Bruce, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
With the scenarios, had you thought about factoring in since we do have the food and beverage in the industrial park, if we were to get a beverage distributor and they consumed, I don't know what, close to 1 million gallons a day themselves?
I have not heard that. So that's the first that I heard, that you have a user coming in.
We don't have, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
if we
I
did,
mean,
we
if
have
they
that site
did-
available, so I'm saying if we actually had one move here, because that site's available.
1 million gallons a day, you're gonna need 750 gallon a minute to supply them.
Right.
So if I had a 2,000 gallon and I cooked another 7, I didn't set it up to fight 2 fires with my 18-inch out of service.
Okay.
It's how many things do you want to pull out of service for the perfect storm?
Right.
But I did not run that scenario.
Okay.
I mean, it's easy, it only takes about 5 minutes.
Okay.
We could.
A question.
Go ahead.
You talked about the pumps out of the plant. If we, since currently we're only sending water in down Beach Grove and in Old Route 30, if we change this to where we're also going to be pumping in Plymouth Street, do we need to reconfigure those pumps? Are they gonna be able to handle doing both of those, doing it in both directions then?
The answer is yes. All we gotta do is tie into the water line in front of the water plant. And you can tie in because in the future planning, we wanted to bring a line up Beach Grove to the north and then head northeast possibly. Or you can go on up Beach Grove to Andrews Road, loop back around the Route 4. So that's not an issue, is connecting in to the water line in front of the plant. Nothing in the plant gets touched. And I will say, we obviously know the 24, if the other ones work, if you wanted to have the 24, I'm not gonna sit here and say that, the 24 won't work, it will. I mean, obviously it's 4 times the capacity where the 24 is over a 12 with the same push. So that would handle it.
In your scenarios, you said you estimated a 2,000 gallon per minute fire flow. Did you figure out where you failed, at what level of fire flow, how much more capacity we would have?
Well, tell me how many hours it's going and the other variables.
Sure.
I mean, they told me with an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, they would have it under control. They wouldn't need that type of flow. And then once you get down under 1,800 gallon a minute demand coming into town, the 12-inch by itself would handle it.
Okay. I know a lot of the newer engines are now 1250 pumps on them, so if you do 2 of them, they're up to 2,500 already.
I still want to see the guy hold the hose at that flow rate.
Monitor knows.
The question, this picture here, that do you have on this one showing that, Andy? What you're talking about is this dark blue line up at the top, right, coming in 98?
Yes.
Okay. And where that red X is, that's where it would join what is currently there?
Yeah, you have a 12-inch that was pushed under the railroad tracks with your previous projects.
Okay.
And so the blue line is the new,
It would be the new coming
The
in
new one.
98.
okay.
Okay.
I believe you were going to, where it came in, where that red X is, you took, or were going to take the line down through Carpenter's along and tie back into the 24 also.
That's what they were saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, yeah.
So from the red X then down to the yellow, this is
Yeah, one
probably
of the
that
other
jump
dot
right
there.
there.
Yeah, you would want, there was another, I don't know, is it in or the Carpenter's bottom water line?
Partially, it's not fully connected because, obviously because of the raw water line being raw water instead of treated water.
And then it'd also be there available to go back up to the industrial park, correct?
It already has a 12-inch going up to feed the industrial park through the driveway on the west side of the old Crawford landmark. When we built the industrial park, we tied to your 8-inch line on Plymouth Street and took a 12-inch up and underneath the 4-lane highway into the cul-de-sac of the industrial park on the east end and looped it out to Route 4 down to Lawn and tied into your existing water and then ran the 12-inch across Lawn to the water tower. And then there was another project, you came from the water tower south along Maple Street, down the Lawn, and worked back to the plant there. So there is a major loop through all that.
So is there certain provisions that have to be put in place if you wanted to tap that 18-inch water line as future economic expansion there on Route 98?
The tap, if somebody wanted to tap into the new line, if that is put in on Plymouth 98, they just would have your normal regulations to adhere to as if we tapped out in front of here. There's nothing different for that line. I mean, you got a saddle you're gonna strap it on, you're gonna core it, you're putting the cork stop in, running the line, curb box, and into your house.
Anybody got anything?
Yes, so, this is, are we gonna still use our existing raw water line? Are we just gonna leave it until,
The decision is yours. My thoughts were the raw water line would not be needed. You wouldn't have to worry about hunting for a leak. The biggest problem is the maintenance to me, not the hydraulic capacities. Because I remember getting calls to go out and check the meter pit for the county, because after several hours of searching, you weren't able to find a leak in town that was draining your towers, and it would have to be at a higher crane and back in their buildings back that time. But I know John would be, it's always gonna be in his back of his mind, where's the leak? And in December, January, February, he would have to dispatch somebody if they weren't able to readily find it in the city streets somewhere, and somebody'd have to walk that 2 miles.
I actually sent 2 people because safety
Yeah.
factor, because
Yeah.
being next to the river.
That, to me, maintenance is would be my biggest concern I hate those. And everybody driving down the road, if we happen to have a line in the road, along the side of the road, would see if we had any major leakage going on there. Plus, your 24-inch, nobody's gonna tap it. You're not gonna have a development use it.
That,
answers the
the
question.
line that goes up to the industrial park, that's far enough away? I mean, looking ahead here for a year or so, we know that they're going to be replacing that one bridge across the railroad. ODOT is. I mean, that's what we had already received information on. 2 years? So that, where we are right now is with that line, that's far enough away from there, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, we went straight north and across
Okay.
where that drive on the west side of the Crawford Landmark used to be. We went straight north.
Straight north, okay.
And you'll actually see a fire hydrant up there in the grass on the dead end of that drive.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, just going back to last week, or what, 2 weeks ago, I'm just a little confused why, before the water plant was built, this was the plan, and now, after we've awarded the bid to a contractor, that now we're changing. You know, now access isn't good, and we're worried about this line's gonna leak. 4 years ago, or whenever before we started the water plant, this was never thought of. It just baffles me. I don't understand why now this 48-inch line that I think pretty much everybody said is in pretty good shape for 50 years old, why we don't want to use that and spend $1 million on another line. That's all I got. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know why all of a sudden it's an issue, but
Well, what,
I
you
wish I
haven't
had an
said
answer.
anything about a cost.
I'm nowhere near that.
You're nowhere near
I'm
that.
about half.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Bruce? Yes.
Yeah, I think Dan makes a fair point there, and then also, I mean, at this point, this could cost $750,000 to $1 million. I think we need a more detailed estimate before we agree to anything, so that we know more to the numbers what we're signing up for before we agree to anything on this one. So that's where I'd like to see is a more firm figure on what this is really gonna cost, because I don't wanna agree to, it could be 900,000 and it turns into, it ends up being 1.3 million or something along those lines. So for now, I'd say, you know, it's an interesting idea, but I wanna see numbers.
Mayor?
I was just gonna add to what Lynn said about December, January, February, how about April, May, June, you know? I mean, if you had a leak back in there right now, how would you get back in there? I mean, is it even possible? You know, and it's, so you're looking at, I mean, whatever you decide is fine, but, yeah, I don't know, I wasn't here when this was planned or thought out, but I think if back in the 70s, this should have never been built, you know, it didn't make any sense to go through, over the river and through the woods. I mean, I know it might have been the shortest way, but I suppose the plan back then was to, you know, maintain the line every year, which they didn't do. So, but even then, they still had flooding and winter weather type issues. So if you look at the weather since last September, that would be pretty much inaccessible since September of last year. And we have a leak there, you gotta keep those things in mind. How you get back in there? That's all I wanted to say.
Go ahead.
Then, do we have any idea what the remaining life expectancy is of that 24-inch concrete wall?
If it's intact and they find no other issues with it, you could go another 40, 50 years. Yeah, I wouldn't, we've got lines that old now in town. And, you know, that's ductile iron, that's a good grade. They had a good firm inspecting when it went in, you know, it's 50 years old, so it's got probably some things in it you want to tweak. And whether you want to disconnect, you want to totally disconnect the 18-inch off of that and abandon that, so all those T's need dug up, and I'm sure that's probably what was in the bids. I don't know, but part of those. But.
That's the other thing, obviously it's gonna have to, if we're gonna spend money on a new line, it's gonna have to come out of the water budget, or the water fund, and we're already, you know, keep raising that. You know, that's something I'm not to do, to raise, yeah, I mean, it's gonna probably raise utility bills, right?
It costs money to do whatever we're gonna do. I mean, if that
This
is
has
as
already
simple as
been,
that.
the,
No, but I know there's
this
still-
line's already been,
But there's still, right, it's already out there, but it's still gonna cost to do what we had gone to bid for the old line. That's not free,
no,
no.
that's all in, that $30 million we're paying for.
No, this is actually, this is set aside, we were to pay for this, to convert it. That is already money set aside in the budget, we didn't put that in the loan. So that's already.
184. You're talking about the 184?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's already set aside for this project. And I think I'll let Lynn kind of explain, if we were want the company to come and clear it out, so we had a 50-foot wide path, if we can, we'll have to track the line and know where it goes exactly. You know, there's a company that does it, and Lynn, you can explain the math, but the only reason I brought this up when I did is because as I looked at it and I sat down with the contractor, and he had his concerns, it threw up a red flag, because this started back in 2010, 2011, even before I got here. And it kind of just stayed in the mainstream, and then everything went out to bid. And the contractor had some concerns about how he was gonna get back to certain areas. So then I said, well, how are we gonna maintain it? So that's why we're talking about it today. We can go on with the bid, if that's what you guys wanna do. It don't matter to me. But if we take that money there, we have OPWC next year, and Lynn's working on that. We have that money we spend every year and get their share, it would probably pay for a new one. So, that's one reason I brought it up. We can get you a more firm figure, that'd be fine. We can easily put that together for you.
I got Kurt out here.
So is the contractor, could we hold him to that bid that he has already put in and say, hey, you bid it, it's your job to get back in, figure out how you're gonna get back in?
Now, he's fine either way. We had awarded it this spring, and he had some other jobs, and we've been in communication with him just to say, do you have a problem if we put this off till fall? And he said, right now, I can't get back there anyway. Said it's too wet. He had some other jobs to do, and he would move our project to the fall.
But if it dried out or something between now and the fall, and we said, let's do it, he's responsible to clear a path.
To get in and do what he needs to get to put in like the valves and things like that, that'll be up to him. But not a full path.
Not full time.
Only to get in to video it
Only spots.
and bore it to clean
There's 7 or 8 spots.
it. Yeah.
Would it be beneficial to take that stone pile we're gonna have out of the wastewater plant after it gets all ground up and maybe put a light service road in that path for getting to it in the future?
Well, that path is 2 miles long, 50 feet wide. So I don't have the numbers in front of me on the cost of that, but now you're talking trucking, and, you know, just to clear the 2 miles, Lynn, what?
I had it's a little over 12 acres of ground, and it was gonna be about 6,000 an acre, 5 to 6. I talked to a client of mine who, that's what he does for a living. And that was the number he gave me, figuring 40 years growth in there. So there's gonna be some trees in that 50-foot corridor that are gonna be substantial. And, you know, he's shooting from the hip, but that's what he does, and that's the number he gave me.
Go ahead, Andy.
Well, that's what I was gonna add too, is that I feel like the 184 is kind of not the accurate figure here, and that the real cost is 184 plus whatever it costs to clear the path and give us access to this existing raw water line. So to me, I'm gonna feel much more comfortable approving the new line if I know that it's 184 plus, you know, another 400,000 of expense or whatever it might be to clear this path, compared to the new water line if it's 750,000. So, you know, the numbers start getting closer to the point where it does become a, you know, why not go ahead with the new line? But at this point, I'm, you know, kind of, I'd like to see more information to confirm what I'm thinking we're heading that direction.
Anybody else got anything?
If I may, Mr. Trudeau?
Yes, sir.
One other thing, when this was all started, we also weren't looking at extending outside past the city limits. And now that the ordinances allow that, that is another option that's always in our mind now. Where can we get that other service? And we didn't have that when the planning was started on the plan.
And with this new water line, then that's part of that would be part of the picture that you could actually run with this new water line. And
You've got your first 2 extensions are in since that was allowed. And we got plan approval today for the 3rd going north along Route 4. So, you know, it's showing we're taking small steps at this point. But, you know, that's fine. We just keep making steps, so.
yes,
I think the other thing too, there's not a lot of homes on 98 in the town, but I think there's 11, okay. I was gonna say it was over 10, there's 11 potential customers, whether they would all tap in, I mean, it's a. that could
plus
be-
whatever
that could be
future
another-
growth you might would.
Yeah, that could be about $5,000-$10,000 a year in revenue, so all things to keep in mind. But if we could get some firmer estimates and then maybe some pros and cons of each one and get back with you. And
That'd be great if you would.
okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
that's the only thing at this point is just, you know, any of these decisions related to water that's gonna change water rates or water bills, you know.
Well,
We
yeah.
wanna be as,
Go ahead, Kurt.
watch the numbers as closely as possible.
Maybe this is a question for Mr. Ernstberg, but if that 18 that goes in now, if that breaks, how much time do we got before we're starting to be in a bad situation here?
The new 18?
Yeah, the new 18.
Depends where it breaks. If it breaks under US 30, you
Bad
gotta
situation.
you gotta your city's gonna run out of water. Because you have to probably get, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you'll have to get state permission, you'll have to find out where it's at. It's encased, so trying to trace it and find it is gonna be a nightmare.
And basically, you got 1 million gallons in the air. You use 1.2, 1.3 a day. So if it breaks and it's shut down,
You got a day.
You're done in a day.
you're in a day, you're sending everybody home. You could stretch it out because we had to do this before, back in the 80s when the 18 broke out of the water plant. It was in a flooded Lane Street. We drained all the towers, we drained the plant, and I was instructed by Mr. Althwaite at that time to go tell everybody to shut down. And we had to do that to maintain residential usage and the hospital usage. So I shut down all the restaurants and factories and.
Now, if it would happen on Beach Grove Road, I could have it fixed in a matter of a couple hours, but if you get under US 30, then it's a whole nother world.
You would also probably bring in some irrigation piping, lay on top of the ground, cut trenches across, go underneath the overpass, and possibly come back in and tie into the steamer nozzle on a fire hydrant, feed from one end and tie it back into the other. You know, that's, at that point, you're just trying to go.
Just a thought that came to my mind, and I don't know if there would be any cost of this or not, but the existing raw water line, if we do reroute and go down 98, is it able to just stay underground? We don't have the cost in tearing it out or anything? There's not a requirement for us to tear it out? Okay. Well, I didn't know if there would be a time frame on us having to remove it.
At this time, there's no requirement.
I don't know the regulations that well, we'd have to remove
Like
it.
the old wooden lines that are still buried in the streets.
That's right.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on. I take it Mr. Ratliff.
Yeah, thanks. I need a resolution from this body to proceed to court to seek an easement on 1426 Hopley Avenue. That's part of a water line project that we have going on now. We've got all the other easements secured. This one, however, the owner is now in a nursing home. There's a guardian. We just haven't been able to make any contact. So the way to do it when that's the situation is you ask the court to approve the easement. And our revised code says that before you do that, this body has to issue a resolution.
So this is the one that has the little blue star right beside it. If you look at the map that you have, it's got the little blue star.
And it's not so much that they're fighting it, it just, the idea is
Yeah,
unavailable.
Yeah, Ms. Myers is unavailable.
Okay.
There is a guardian appointed, but we've called a lot. Yeah, and so we're getting down to the wire, so we just need to move forward.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And this is just to run a standard water line through their front yard?
It's replacing the water line.
Replacing one.
I'll make a motion to.
I'll second it.
Okay, yeah, first, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
That was the one that made the second.
Don't worry about it.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question for the law director.
Yeah,
Would this be for a temporary easement?
This is a temporary work easement for the replacing the line, because the other easement already exists where the line is at. This is the ingress egress to fix it, to replace it.
So we'll need signatures then.
okay.
Okay, on the resolution, for the resolution.
Okay, I'm gonna recess the service at 6:54.
All right, I will call the planning at 6:55. All right, codified ordinance. 1131.12 fire protection.
Yes, that is where it requires, in John Ernstberger, we're on the
Fire
size of the
protection.
fire protection for 6 or an 8-inch. Right now, our ordinance says 8, but we can go to a 6, correct?
EPA says 8 or 6 inch.
So just to save some costs down the road, if we need to replace some 8-inch, we can put a 6, as long as it does the satisfactory flow. So it's just to save some money in future projects that we only need a 6-inch.
May I ask, for about Lynn, would that hinder anything going from an 8 to a 6?
To me, the answer is no, and we always design the distribution system based on the demand. I wouldn't want a 6-inch in the middle of crossroads, but it gives you flexibility to run the 6-inch. EPA, as John said, the minimum size to service a fire hydrant was that, a 6-inch. And when the ordinance was originally passed, I believe for Bucyrus, our water towers were also 23 feet lower in elevation. And we had 10 pounds less pressure all through town. And so for safety and helping out there, they had the requirement of an 8-inch minimum to service all fire hydrants. And that's this board's decision. And we're looking at that because the one more issue, firefighting, and everybody wants big pipes. Water quality issues that we now have upon us want small pipes. And I'm saying when we have an expansion to an area, let's decide what's best between the water department, the fire department, and the utility departments to make that decision, and that would grant some flexibility and savings in installations of future lines.
Do you know off the top of your head if there's an NFPA requirement, National Fire Protection Association requirement, or is that going to be more based on PSI? For slide servicing hydrants?
I don't know the NFPA,
Yeah.
all their
I was trying
requirements.
to look it up because I can't remember.
And, when I was researching, one of the things I wanted was also, I mentioned here to Mr. Folk, the ISO rating numbers that I can Google until I'm fall asleep at the keyboard and you won't find anything. And everybody says we need bigger pipes to get more flow to get a better ISO rating and it'll save us money. But nobody's really told me how much it can save, if any. I'm sure maybe it does. I'm gonna leave that to the insurance agents. But I'm not worried about fighting the fire and doing it, and I know a lot of communities have the 6 and 4s, and like I said, it's a lot of what the THMs, the trihalomethanes that are in it. It's a cancer-causing agent that we didn't really know about before, and it's a factor of chlorine and detention time in the water lines. Bigger water lines, more detention, higher THMs. So one of the things we're always trying to do is keep that number low. So we need to turn the water over faster, and one of the new options on your water treatment plant, I believe, was a carbon filter, which was to help reduce that number going out as it left the plant to help us all.
There. Any other questions? If there's no other questions, entertain a motion.
I so move that we reduce it from 8-inch to 6-inch.
Now you're saying this is only when needed.
Yeah, I mean, whatever the project calls for.
Okay.
If it calls for an 8, we'll put an 8. If it calls for a 12, we'll put a 12.
Okay, but we can go down to 6.
Correct.
Okay, that, I just want to clarify.
Man, and I want to say, a 6 is the minimum if you put a fire hydrant on it.
Right.
You can go 4s, 2s
There's no fire.
in your system as long as you don't have a fire hydrant. And we have done that, and we would put a flushing hydrant on the end of a 2-inch line,
Yep.
so that you could still flush it and clean it like you normally need to do. It's just not for fire protection.
Over on Norris Street, that was done,
Mm-hmm, yes, sir. Replace that.
and they put a flush valve in.
Yep.
I have a first, I have a nomination, so,
Second.
okay. Seconded. Any other discussion, questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say the same sign.
Aye. I'd rather research it for a little bit more before we made a decision,
Okay. Motion passed with an objection. That, there's nothing else.
And we need a signature from you, there's legislation.
Yes. But nothing else, I'll adjourn the meeting at 7:01.
All right, health and safety, 7:01 PM. Got a letter Tuesday night from Traffic Commission dated June 12th. To City Council, dear Health and Safety Committee, the City of Bucyrus Traffic Commission would like to recommend an amendment to the traffic control map to allow for street sweeping on the downtown area. Ordinance number 2778 dated 6/17/64. Establish no parking on either side of South or North Sandusky Avenue from Charles Street to Perry Street from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. The amendment would change times from 5:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. A copy of the traffic control map has been enclosed. Sincerely, Jeff Fisher, Traffic Commission. And
There was one addition we forgot to put that letter, should be on Friday mornings only.
that was my only concern.
That would reflect the last page there of downtown street sweeping. You'll see the minutes from Traffic Commission that we moved as no parking on Friday mornings from 5:30 a.m. to 7 o'clock a.m. for street sweeping. Apparently back in the 60s, somebody worked at 3 a.m. and they don't do that anymore. So we start at 7 a.m., but when we sweep, we have someone come in at 6 a.m.
So we would amend the request to include to state on Friday, and also probably should take north out of Sandusky.
Yeah, just Sandusky Avenue.
Maybe Sandusky Avenue.
Yeah, it's in from 1964 as North Sandusky.
Yeah.
So-
Is it really?
Yep.
That's all that too.
So allowing or disallowing parking on Friday mornings from 5:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. One question I had was, would we post signage or
Just
just
notify
the people
them.
that
Personally
live in the
notify
area?
them. I'll pass out a flyer to everyone, so. We only have a couple that.
3 or 4.
Yeah, they typically turn over, and it's not that we're gonna get writing tickets.
Well, my other question, would we tow or would we just sweep
No,
around?
no, just,
Okay.
we're gonna sweep around them and then hopefully come make another loop back and then they're gone, we sweep again, so. We're not, it's not to put the hammer down anyway, it's just that, there's certain blocks that downtown that, people do, and they've been pretty cooperative so far, that people do park overnight because they live upstairs. And I think that's a trend that's gonna continue, gonna grow. So if we can, have those folks, get up at 6 in the morning and move their car, that would be great.
We have verified then that the Pelican doesn't open until 7 a.m.?
They open at 6.
I thought
I
6.
don't,
I think they open prior to 7.
I know they do.
But I think we talked about that when we brought this up before, the
They
street
have the
sweeper would
opportunity.
start on that block.
Yeah.
If he starts at
And they would have
5:30.
the opportunity to park on the square,
Yeah, they have,
Correct.
yeah.
right around the corner on the square. Okay, so that, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't.
We're gonna let them know, and then,
And let, okay,
Well, they got the parking lot out back there too.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like I say, we're not gonna tell anyone, so.
it ain't much, but it's a parking lot.
Well, I know that, I'm just saying,
They open at
if
6:30.
I pull up there to get coffee from Marion, I'm not gonna know that, so. I mean, I don't, it's, do whatever you want, I don't see where it's any different. Whether you have it, no parking this time or not, because you're still going around them, and if they're parked there, that's fine. I don't know, I just think it's a waste of time, but go ahead. We haven't enforced parking downtown for, what, 20 years, so.
Or, make a motion, and I move that we amend the times.
Have a motion to amend, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Next item is codified ordinance 511.01, the noise control. Mr. Rattler.
Thank you, sir. We've recently had some issues with noise in the downtown business district. We have more and more people moving into that area as residential. Recently lost a court case on one of these where just, the court felt our ordinance was vague. A copy of our current ordinance is in there, and there is a lot of vagueness to it. It prohibits unreasonable voice or loud sound, which is likely to cause inconvenience or annoyance to persons of ordinary sensibilities. That's pretty undefined. And then it further complicates things by talking about distances. You can hear things with respect to predominantly residential areas, but we have a lot of areas that are mixed use, and so that's an issue. I have provided you with a number of other city ordinances from other cities. As you will see, some of these are very expansive. The one on top is Toledo. It goes, down to loading and unloading zones and homeowners' outdoor equipment, all those sorts of things. I will say that all of these are relatively newer, and all of these deal with an issue that was kind of simple to the current case. It was not so much the loudness of the noise, but the vibration of the noise. And we've all been stuck in traffic next to some
215-inch subwoofers?
Yeah, some idiot whose windows are rattling and
Make yours rattle?
the music's so distorted you can't hear it.
Not anymore, I'm out of high school.
A lot of these deal with vibrations and other types of sounds, not just, it's not just loud stereos anymore. And I believe I included in here as well a study talking about just how ambient noise, you hear a lot of things about ambient light being issues, and ambient noise also being an issue. So some of these communities talk about that in their the Toledo one right there in front, in their section 507.1, where they say their goal is to kind of reduce the overall ambient noise in the city. So, there's for your reading pleasure. Pick one you like, pick sections you like. We can cobble them all together, whatever you want to do.
Mr. Clinton? Yeah. I don't mean to step into your committee, but I do have the question, if we are going to move to, or including more of the vibrations, are we gonna start citing the kids with subwoofers in the cars more often, first off? Secondly, are we going to start putting signs up in town that say no Jake brakes?
Whatever you want to do.
Because semi-truck Jake brakes do cause vibration.
I think that's already prohibited under our code.
I think we have an ordinance against that.
You
Definitely, there we go again, we're not enforcing it then.
Yeah,
Because they come
we-
right down Sandusky Street by my office all the time laying on them Jake brakes as they roll through town.
Yeah.
Would this be something that we would have to probably look at obtaining decibel meters for each of the law enforcement vehicles?
Yep, and specific types of decibel meters, not only decibels, but also different types of vibration and sound. You see a number of these have, different levels, different types of levels, different types of noise, and ways of measuring it. So there's a lot of complexity. It's not, the world's not just loud or not loud anymore. It's,
Different type of.
lawyers screwed up everything. So that's what you see a lot of this in. And then they talk about different districts, different levels in different districts. And some of these have even different penalties if it's further and further above. So,
Kurt?
With the Brothers Festival, do you suspend the noise ordinance during that, or?
that's up to whatever they want to pass, whatever law they want to write.
I would presume it's gonna be during overnight hours for some of that at least,
There's a lot of noise coming from that, like till 2 o'clock in the morning. beer gardens.
I can hear crazy thoughts at my house.
Yeah.
Which is
I
all
can't,
right.
on a good wind
I
day,
don't
I can't
care.
do it. So there,
Go on,
that'd be
go in
something
with
we'd
your
have
air
to consider.
conditioner on, I'm all right.
Any other question?
Yeah, do you have an idea on the cost of these?
They're very inexpensive. In fact, you can download apps on your phone now that do some of that.
But I mean, we have to have something that would hold up in court, correct?
Yeah.
And what are you talking about in cost?
No, it's not inexpensive.
I'm just curious, I didn't know, and also if the police officers have to have it, would it have to be mounted to the car?
It can be whatever you want it to be. It can be mounted to the car, it can be portable, it can be centrally located, you know. So Columbus has, you know, gunshot microphones all like that. And
I've got two other questions for you. Number one is, do you know off the top of your head, is that additional training that our officers would have to go to be certified for that to stick in court?
Whatever device they use, they're gonna have to be trained on operating on. The extent of that training, is, you know, depends on maybe what you get, but they're not complicated pieces of machinery.
And while we can read through this pile that you've given us, are there some that you have familiarity with, or you've got other people that you work in the legal community with, or other judges and other places that you can ask what sticks, what doesn't stick, what's going to be the best way to take care of the situation? Are there opinions out there that'll help guide us?
Yeah, and actually one of these, I think it's the last one, is actually the one that's from OML, which is the one that they publish as their base ordinance. And that's on their website. I will tell you that from a court perspective, the ones that are more definitive, this amount of decibels at this time of day or night in this district, then that's kind of a per se violation, kind of like going to .08. You're per se drunk, you know. So the more you define it, the better off it is. But also, the more you define it, you want to have an understanding of what ambient noise levels are. Spikes in noise, you know, if your level is 80 decibels and the bar's cruising along at 79 decibels and a truck rumbles by and it pops it over, who's at fault? So those are all things that we'll hatch out on the back end, but from the legislative standpoint, the more definitive you can be, the better it is for prosecution.
Are you thinking from your standpoint it would be easier for us to read through these and highlight things that we like and submit them back to you, or for you to just kind of create what you think is going to be the best thing to guide us?
I would say that you're going to have to dig through this and find out what you want and what you don't want. There are multiple districts that you've got to take into consideration, and I'll tell you another thing you're going to want to take into consideration is, while we do have residents living downtown, and we do have, you know, a lot of mixed-use neighborhoods, we also have businesses that pre-exist in those neighborhoods. And depending on what numbers you pick, a business may very well come to you and say, look, you've unlawfully taken my ability to generate revenue, my ability to make a living. You forced my business to close down, and you've cost me everything, and I'll see you in court. So that's the flip side of it. So you're going to have to go through this. You have to weigh not only the rights of the citizens for, you know, if they want reduced noise levels or whatever they want, but also the ability of businesses. You know, and entertain. If you live in the French Quarter, you have a much different noise expectation level than if you live out in the country.
So that's your job to guide us in that instance.
I will do so, and I can show you court cases that, you know, go both ways, and people have been sued, and people that have won, and people that have lost. And I'll try to dig that out. But you're probably gonna wanna talk to residents, you're gonna wanna talk to business owners.
Would you like each of us to individually submit these to you after we've looked through them?
Yeah, ultimately, your committee's gonna have to kind of filter it out and see what you like, see what you don't like. And this is gonna give you a good idea of the current state of the law as far as what legislatures are doing with respect to these things. And, you know, we have a small community, and we have a lot of things that are very close to each other. So those are all things that are gonna have to be taken into consideration.
I know we currently have large industrial facilities that have dust collectors that run 24 hours a day. And, and there's residents all the way around it, so.
From my house, I hear something, whether it's GE or Leeds or something, I have to hear something.
Besides high school football games.
Yeah.
Well, GE had, I think they fixed it, but they had a warning, something, probably their dust collector, like to say, and I hear it every night.
And that's an important, GE is a key thing. I mean, it's really weird. I mean, it's a very nice neighborhood, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a big factory right in the middle of it. That wouldn't get built today, but, 100 years ago.
And I hear them drop blades over at Bucyrus Blades about every other night too, so.
Well, they got the hydraulic presses to cut that stuff. They're choking.
And
Yeah,
about 4:30 in the morning, I can hear people dropping dumpsters. They actually drop them off of the back of their truck.
Oh,
They
yeah.
don't even lower them down, they just drop them.
We got a lot to work on here.
Yeah.
And one thing I will throw out there to you, 2 years, maybe 3 years ago now, this body formed an ad hoc committee to redo the sign ordinance completely. And that, you were involved in that, and you had citizens and all kinds of people involved, and it's a big project. I mean, we're going from 100-word ordinance to this one at Toledo is, I think, 20-some pages. So it's a massive change with a lot of things a lot of moving parts. Mr. Schott?
I think, what Rob's saying, we're gonna need to have some separate health and safety committee meetings and make some determinations there. And
And maybe an ad hoc committee, and maybe a public forum to get people to, absolutely, I think that's perfect. I think the first step is for us to peruse through this stack, and then we could have it heard.
You got any idea how many noise complaints the police department receives annually?
No, I have no idea.
Are we having like a bunch of noise complaints that aren't getting handled?
I said there's,
The annual report, I know Chief's annual report has.
I'm just wondering if this is all coming from just a single source, or if we're having multiple.
I can tell you that there's only been one prosecution in the last, one that I can think of. There may have been more. Sometimes they don't get cited as noise ordinance violations, they get cited as part of a bigger thing, of disorderly conduct or unruly, a party situation or something like that. So they don't specifically apply to the noise ordinance, but.
Is the court case that recently was lost, was that possibly a downtown business and a up there department issue?
Yeah, there's a horseshoe bar. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, in answer to your question, Kurt, I think there would be a lot more complaints if we had, if we had more officers. Like where I live, right in the corner of Irving and Plymouth there, people use that as a speedway. I could be calling 10 times a day for the way motorcycles or cars peel out there, but unless and that's why I would, give you a heads up for the committee there and the council. It's kind of like catching, we get speeding complaints on certain streets. There's 90 miles of city streets, and typically we have 3 officers on duty. So when you write this ordinance, we're not gonna be able to catch most of these folks. So I think a lot of people kind of get like me, just give up, why bother? But so when you write it, I try to write it in that spirit that you're not going to be able to catch most of these folks, and maybe I know it needs to be specific in a way, but just just be careful how you write it, because we're gonna get more calls and say, you know, I've got, the police are gonna get, they're not gonna be there, they're gonna miss it, people are gonna get frustrated, so.
Well, I know from this case and also from talking to Chief Kepke, the vagueness of the current ordinance made it difficult for law enforcement, the police officers to know how to enforce it, because, you know, what is a reasonable person, what, you know, so it, you know, this one situation, yeah, it's one situation, but there'll be another situation in 6 months from now, a year from now, and if you're not prepared to deal with it, it's gonna be a new cycle of problems all over again. So it's something you have to address, because, you know, the courts basically have rejected our current ordinance, and if we don't write one that they'll respect and enforce, you know, we're not doing our jobs.
Well, we've got some reading to do, and we will recess this committee at 7:21 p.m.
7:21, call to order, start, public lands and buildings, the city hall lobby use. Apparently, I'm told someone wants to use our city hall lobby, Who knows about this?
Want me to take it?
Anybody? I don't know.
Yeah, we were approached by the organization, Bucyrus Tourism Bureau, about setting up a small room downstairs in the lobby to, you know, to be able to run the tourism bureau out of that area, as well as, you know, be greeters for City Hall, and possibly maybe answering phones and directing people into different departments. And I know that goes under public lands and buildings. We have to have your permission to do that. I think it would, you know, enhance the services we provide here, and make them more welcoming to the people that come in the door, who's many times they're looking for directions. And also be good ambassadors, you know, for the city, for those folks too, not just giving directions. And then they would be there during regular business hours, usually 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. It would be a minimal expense. We'd you know, have to put up, we could do it against the wall, because we'd have 3 walls. We'd have to probably run a phone line, and maybe some lighting. We would look into some of those types of things, but I don't think it would be a large expense. So if you're looking at, you know, kind of win-win situations, I know the term can be overused, but I think it's a natural fit for the Tourism Bureau to be here.
Bruce?
Don't they, isn't like Jerry Diver's old office, do they use Jerry Diver's old office to the left of the water department? It's got a separate door there.
Yeah, that's, they use that for an entrance. They got stuff stored in there.
You're talking about the first door when you go in, Bruce, right there, or back in?
There's a door to the left of the water department.
Right, that's where they go in.
Oh.
And then go through another door to go back in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so,
They have materials and things in there.
Yeah,
Files in there too, I think.
I think there's some files, and then you go back in, there's another couple of rooms, but,
Just the idea that maybe you wouldn't have to do construction or anything.
Yes.
With the, I think we'd have to have some plan brought to us on how it's gonna be put up. Is it gonna be permanent? Is it gonna be removable? Where, you know, we need to have some, before we okay anything, we need to know where you're gonna put it down there in the lobby. And, you know, the cost and who's gonna be responsible for it. Is it gonna be the Bucyrus Tourism Bureau, or is it gonna be the city? So I think we need to have information, like some drawings or something. It don't have to be anything fancy, just as long as we have an idea of where it goes, kind of a sketching of what it would tentatively look like, and who's gonna foot the bill for.
Well, we can get that all back to you.
that I think.
If you're open, we wanted to know if you're at least open to the idea of pursuing it, and
Well, if we get some information, I'm not.
Personally, I think it's a great idea to have it here.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I can respect what Mark's saying, he wants some more details, so we can leave it at that. Any other questions? I guess. Sis?
Are they going to close their office where they are now, or is this,
they're renting space right now.
they're renting the space now,
Yeah,
right up at the?
partnership. Yeah, they would come over here, they would.
Basically what they did is they took the room that was like the meeting room for the chamber and they cut a door in on the wall and made that the tourism office and moved the moved the desk meeting room out to the main lobby. So they don't have a per se office up there, they just fit them in up there at the partnership building.
I think it makes more sense to fit the city hall. I mean, it's a natural fit here for the tourism bureau to be at the main building in town.
Yeah, I'm not against it, I think it'd be a good idea, but I think we need a little more information on exactly what it's gonna look
But
like.
yeah, I think it's all happened fast, and just want to know if you're okay with it. I think what?
The other thing is because, and actually the next item that's, on this list brings up the idea of safety in this building. And, I know that there are new plans that are being drawn up at the county courthouse, about where everybody's going to have to go through security in order to get into the building. And if we're going to consider any kind of other security here in this building, which is something I think we do need to take a look at, I mean, we've taken a baby step, we have a police officer here at the council meeting, something like that. But if we're going to have some kind of security to get into this building, there's so much room down there in that lobby, and just so much room. And I really think that they belong up here. To me, they do a good service for the city. But I'm saying, you know, we need to, as Mark said, take a look at what the plans are, how much room they're going to take, and how that would work in relationship if and when we do this. I'm not going to say if. When we decide we're going to have to put in security to come into this building.
Okay, anything else? Move on. Oh, Mr.
Does the council have to give permission each time city, parts of this building is given to others to use? Because I'm wondering about, like, we have a congressman down in an office in our building now, and I don't remember that the council has ever asked about him moving in.
Well, I think
Yeah, that occurred already. Yeah, they gave permission for that 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, because Mrs. Sherrick brought it up, and we discussed it in
And
council.
it was voted on, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I might have been
You
there
may
for 2
not have
years
been
I
on
was
council
gone.
then.
Yeah,
But Mrs. Sherrick brought that up, and it was discussed, yeah.
Mr. Walker was on, Rocky was on council at that time.
And we have many, and not just that office, but, I mean, we have different groups that use council chambers. We have different groups that are down, I mean, we allow to use the porch outside, just the car show that just got done. The Bratwurst Festival uses those kind of things, and I think that making good use of the property is something that we basically leave most of the time to just better judgment as to, unless it's something like this, which is a little bit more involved, a little bit more permanent, we have to get a phone line and some other things into them. So, yeah, we do encourage different groups to use the facilities here. Little League uses it every year for an extended period of time, and
Yeah, it's, and just, I guess, for the community, there's times it's available that you can use it, so if you have something, if you'd like to have your meetings there, call some people. So, okay, are we done beating that horse? Okay. Let's, next we'll move on to the utility billing kiosk. which I realized that we talked about that and we put that down there, or I guess I didn't realize that we actually, is it down there? Is there?
No, we don't have one.
Oh, we still don't have one?
We still don't have one.
Okay, because
And
I know
that's-
we talked a long time ago about this.
But this is where I brought this one up, okay? Because I was up here, and it was a week or so ago, that there's something that we have to do as far as that utility office is concerned. We need to get some additional security for them down there. That there are times that it gets very nasty down there if someone comes in with an issue, and I'm just thinking of the security of the people that work down there. And we either need to replace all that glass in there with something that's a lot more substantial than what it is. We need to rethink, I believe, how we actually use that office, and does it need to be open every day? If we put a kiosk in there where people could come in, use a computer, pay their bill from that if they want to, have a deposit where people can drop their checks in, that all gets processed. But if someone has questions, we have certain days and certain times that they can call and make an appointment and talk to someone down there. But I think that's just continuing with this whole idea of security, especially in this building. And we've got the police down there.
I agree. I think there's a gentleman in town that has a business, and he takes, my mom, she's probably a little older than me, but,
Thank you.
and anyhow, she wants to pay everything by cash. So there's a gentleman in town that takes, now I don't know if he's, I'm thinking he makes a little bit of money off that somehow, but the banks will take, well, at least First Federal takes the county taxes. So I always thought that, why aren't we, making that available for somehow? I mean, I don't know, that's probably you guys would have to get a hold of the banks and say, can they pay their water bill here, And that's gonna take the load off of those guys down there and open up room just for.
Well, I think Mr. Wagner can take it, I love to give him jobs to do, to look into getting a kiosk down there that, I think that, it would be, a good use of it down there that, and save any confrontational things taking place.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We presented a plan for the kiosk, and I believe it was 2014. But at that time, council was not interested in spending money on it, so we would, we might even have some of those plans, but I know probably the cost will go up some. I think we can put something together.
Square card reader kiosk will cost you $1,500. That's just for a square card reader kiosk.
Do they take credit cards down at the?
Yeah, we did.
My fear is if you bring a kiosk in, you're gonna bring more confrontation, because it's gonna they're gonna mess up a payment somehow, some way, and it's just not gonna go through, and then they're gonna be back in the office the next day screaming and yelling, because now money is missing out of my account because it took more than it was supposed to, or.
Mr. Chairman, I think what we would really need to do is kind of research other communities, see what they're using, see the problems we have. I mean, that might be the wise, instead of showing you the different kinds we can get, why don't we plan on, contacting some other communities and just ask them what they use. If they have kiosks, what they use, what's working, what's not working. So we can maybe head off some of those plans.
Maybe we can create an app and they can just use their cell phone.
Sure. You have a cell phone. You have a smartphone. And everybody does.
Yeah, but, go ahead.
Mr. Fink.
I've heard a couple scenarios some people have told me about, and I've heard them. Is our credit card processing online not instantaneous for people's utility bills? Because I've heard some people say that there's like a 3-day delay. They've paid their bill on the due date, but yet they still get shut off the next day. Because the water department says, well, we don't get the bill for 3 days, or we don't get the payment for 3 days.
It takes 2 to 3 days to process it. And we've had it on the back of our bill since the institution of the billing that says right on the back, please allow 2 to 3 days for this process.
Because I process credit card payments myself for my business, and the processing company I use, it's instantaneous on that one, so I don't know if it's
Ours is the next day, but First Federal had tried to, I guess I'm plugging First Federal today.
That was where,
First
like, a lot
Federal
of-
said they had instantaneous, they wanted me to move over to that, but, so, I don't know, but
Yeah, I'd
is
have
it
to-
feasible to look at?
Yeah, we can look at it. I'll
something
talk to Mike and-
It's more instantaneous to help the people too, so.
Because
So
that
I-
seems, like the frustration I've seen some people have, that was always related to that. The delay,
Yeah, I've
that's
heard that.
taken care of, they wouldn't be so aggressive down in the utility office.
Well, I think on some of the applications for another bank that was here in town, is that if I wanted to pay a bill, I had to go on, and this is the day I went and paid, but this is and then they marked 3 days prior to that, the day that it was going to come out of the account if I wanted it to be paid on this day. So, that was built into, some of those, apps they have for the different banks. So you have to be aware of your bank. I mean, we have no control over, their own bank.
Right, but I know just some of the credit card process, we do Square, I don't know what you do, but I know First Federal has something that they said it was that day, it was instantaneous, so. Yes, Kurt.
Or maybe the one that we've got now, maybe there's a different way that they can, like, send us an email that day of like, this is people that have been paid today by our credit card processing we're doing for you. And then we as a city would see that, yes, these people have paid their bill on the due date. We know we're gonna be expecting that payment to show up in our account. I just don't think for people that are paying their bill on the due date that they should still be getting their water shut off. I mean, we can deal without having their phones for 72 hours as a city. But if they have put an effort to pay on the due date, they shouldn't be getting shut off.
Good.
There's a lot of older people that don't have the phones.
Right.
And that kind of, it don't help them if you do the phone.
No.
And that form to.
But we still have to have the ability for you to either go to the bank or.
Yeah, I
stop
think
in
the
here and
banks
pay-
tonight.
Pay, here or, and like I say, I know there's one business, I don't wanna
I know a lot of
say
people.
his name, but, and there may be, and Kroger's, I guess, cause I went in there to pay Mom's one time and she said, his system was down, and he said that Kroger was taking those. Well, I don't know if they would do the water bill, but.
We always do have automatic withdrawal too, you can set that up, you never have to worry about that.
Some people don't like that though.
I agree, I don't, but I mean, here you go, that's the easiest option right there to solve all these problems we're talking about, automatic withdrawal. You're
I
never
don't
late.
like it either, but I kept missing my water bill, so I went. I am, yeah. Roger called once. He said, hey, Roger called me one time and said, you want to pay your water bill? I said, oh, no. I wouldn't do that. Yeah, I know. Okay, so I guess the kiosk, we've got to get doing homework, huh?
Yes.
So I guess this is the end, we'll adjourn the public lands and buildings at 7:38.
I'll call economic development at 7:38, and we have the citywide community reinvestment area. We were given the packet by Rob at our last council meeting to read over and look through if you needed it too and ask any questions. I read through, the only thing I saw that was wrong is I believe it was page 25, section B, they did not spell dwelling correctly. They're missing 2 L's. Other than that, it looked good to me. Anybody have anything, questions?
Yeah, I went through it too, and, I guess it's good, if we have it, someone may take advantage of it, I don't know. I started looking at the properties and pulled them up and seeing it, just those ones. And, with those, I'm thinking, well, they were people owned them, it wasn't any landlords or anything. And so I thought, well, I don't know if they would really use that. I think their problem was that they just didn't have the funds to keep their house up, you know.
Yeah, and this was those houses that were identified and are included in here. Bucyrus had asked us for the application to just identify, I forget how many it was, 20, 40 houses that were in need of repair, so that they could show that, yes, we are a community
Yeah,
that
that's
has
just like
houses
a
that need
sampling.
repair. So we just, a lot of those were ones that were already in property maintenance or had some other things that we were aware of. So we just kind of pulled those, and it's more of just a proof that, yes, we have houses that need repair.
So by doing this, is really not gonna cost us anything, other than
Yeah, we already-
giving a break on.
Yeah, we already collect the fee, and so that currently flows in, and Bucyrus will just charge us out of that. And they'll administer this program for us, and hopefully more people use it.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope they would use it anyway to get some
Well,
of
and
these
I-
homes to.
And I think one of the biggest changes that we're making is, one, adding the residential, which some of the other communities locally have been doing that for years. But two, we're also allowing retail to use this. For, whatever reason, a long time ago, we didn't allow retail to use this, and we've got a lot of empty storefronts.
Yeah,
So-
and that may be, the retail aspect of it may.
My thought was with Bucyrus being the one administering it now, that was my hope, is that it will get exercised and used more because it'll be more readily available with the applications, and the process will be more streamlined, and we'll know who to contact and things like that. Whereas before, I mean, who was really a point of contact for the CRA before?
Yeah.
But
So what is it you want from the committee?
No, if you're okay with this, then I will tell Bucyrus to check for spelling, and otherwise get things moving. The next step is they will finalize legislation for you guys. They will send out notices to all the school districts, so that they can add any input. And then once we get the legislation, they'll get it up and running.
you might want to let them know about superintendent's changing, because I did notice they were trying to send to like Kevin Kimmel.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and I'll make sure that they update that, and it's in here as well. So we'll make sure that they get that updated. But yeah, that's the next process, and if we can get all that done, maybe by the end of July we can get it passed, because I know there's some new construction starting in August that they would definitely like to take advantage of.
Yeah, and some businesses coming in, they can probably use it to dress their storefronts up a little bit.
Yeah.
No motion or anything needed, or?
Not at this time, just you guys are okay with it, I'll let them know, and we'll
I
get
will
legislation back to you.
recess us then at 7:42 PM. Do you want me to finish this out, Madam President, since we,
Yes, we do not need the finance
so
committee.
with no finance committee, is there any other public participation? All right, none. I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And we will adjourn at 7:39 PM.
Thank you, Chair.